All right, boys, what is good? We are here with a brand new video, Premier League predictions for match week 4. Last week wasn't that great. We've had a little bit of time of international break between the matches, but I got to admit, I did not do so hot last week. As we can see here, we finished 171 out of 898, which, I mean, it's not the worst, right? It's not the worst, but what I'm more embarrassed about is only getting one correct score right and only getting 3 matches right on the 1x2 market. As you can see here, the only prediction I got right last week was the 1-1 Nottingham Forest Wolves result, which, I mean, it's good to get a correct score right, but I think for what I'm looking for is a top 60 finish, usually week in and week out, and I'm also looking to get at least more than 50% of the 1x2 market right and at least 3 correct scores right. Those are my goals every week. I know this video is a little bit later than I normally wanted to publish it, but international break, plus I took a few days off during international break, so it just kind of pushed my schedule back, but I will look to put these videos up at a way better time than normal. Before we get to the rest of the video, I just wanted to say thank you, boys. I appreciate all the love, the subscriptions that are coming in, the likes on the video. I plan on, still being more consistent on YouTube. I even want to throw in some multi-streams on YouTube during Champions League where you guys can watch a YouTube stream alongside the Twitch stream in real time, just my live commentary, the live bets during Champions League, and I'm looking forward to that. So if you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Please like this video, and let's get to Premier League match week 4. So here we have a lovely matchup with Southampton and Manchester United. I got to admit, Manchester United has not impressed me like I thought they would preseason. I had them finishing top 6, top 4 even. It just hasn't been good enough, right? Eric Ten Hag just hasn't had the boys right. So here we see Manchester United being 1.7 money line with a BTTS of 1.6. Kind of makes me feel like the books are baiting people into adding Manchester United in their parlays, right? If there's anything I've seen in the last 5-6 years of betting on the Prem, it's that people love, and when I say love, I mean love to add top 6 teams into parlays when their odds are above 1.6 and they're not facing a top 6 team themselves, right? So when teams like City, Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Newcastle, if they're ever facing a team that's not in the top 6 and they're above 1.6 on the money line, people usually do love to put them in their parlays and take them as singles even. So I feel like that's a little bit of a bait that's set out by the books to kind of trick people, right? To kind of make people add that shit into their parlay. Southampton scoring seems like a good spot after not scoring in 2 out of their 3 matchups so far. You look at Southampton's recent matches and they haven't scored in 2 out of 3 of them, but they're still giving us 1.6 on the both teams to score market. Kind of makes me feel a little bit weird about how this game's going to go down. And for that reason, I went with a 1-1 Southampton Manchester United draw. Brighton and Ipswich Town. So here we have Brighton as a massive 1.38 home favorite. I really do not see them dropping points here. I think Brighton are very good. I think they're especially good at home. And when I say very good, I mean relative to maybe what people think about them. I think personally Brighton are very good. They had a very good result against Manchester United in Brighton as well. The total set at 3, but Ipswich being score is about 1.7. Kind of makes me feel like Ipswich are going to need a really lucky type of goal, maybe a penalty, maybe a crazy counterattack to score a goal. And I think for the purposes of a prediction here, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Brighton win over Ipswich. Crystal Palace and Leicester. Up until this point, I just still have not figured out Crystal Palace. Was I surprised about the 1-1 draw versus Chelsea? No. It feels like that's what Crystal Palace does, right? They kind of bait you into thinking that they could be a good team this year, as they could have a breakout season. Mateta, they got Kamada in the transfer window. Something is up with them, though. I swear they're one of those teams where they drop points against teams they shouldn't, and then they get points against teams that you wouldn't expect them to, right? I really didn't expect them to get shut out against West Ham at home. I didn't need them to get 3 points at home against West Ham, but I wasn't expecting them to get shut out at home against West Ham. And then you go into Chelsea and you somehow get the result. Very surprising for me, and it makes it a bit difficult to judge their matches here. So they're 1.6 on the money line. The total sitting at 2.75. I am a bit surprised that the both teams to score market is sitting at 1.78, knowing Palace has gone 2 out of 3 BTTS and Leicester has gone 3 out of 3 for BTTS. When something like that happens for me, instead of following the trend, especially in a league like the Premier League where we know there's a lot of eyes on it, we know there's a lot of money being put into it by the sports betting world, internationally, across the world, whatever you want to say, it makes me not want to back the both teams to score. And for that reason, I went with a 2-0 Crystal Palace win. I know this sounds crazy considering someone's probably sitting there going, does he not know Leicester have scored in 3 out of their 3 matches so far this season? I know, but I do think Palace at home against a team like Leicester, I'm basically saying this is the last time. This is the last time I'll truly back Palace the way I think they should be getting results, and I'm going to stick with this 2-0 result for Palace here. All right, so for this Fulham and West Ham United, this is one of those difficult matchups for me because looking at their last 3 results hasn't really painted a perfect picture for me. It really hasn't. I really haven't gotten a sense of consistency or just of anything to expect from either of these two teams, especially within this matchup of each other. Fulham had a bad draw versus Ipswich. West Ham had 2 losses to solid opponents, right? It kind of makes me uncertain on what we're expecting out of West Ham here, right? Are we going to expect them to be a great team that beats, Crystal Palace away from home 2-0, or are they just going to be one of those middling teams because of their results against Manchester City and against Arsenal so far this season? The 1x2 market is quite close across the board with a total of 2.75. The both teams' score market is about 1.55. It feels like one of those matchups where I really wasn't picking apart anything from the recent head-to-heads, but the odds and that total being 2.75 was a little low for me, right? I would have thought this could have been a 3, maybe even a 3.25 type of total. So for those reasons, I know this result's going to sound crazy to people after what I've said, but for those reasons, I did go with a 1-1 Fulham West Ham draw. Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. For the sake of time, for the sake of yapping, I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. Liverpool, massive favorites at Anfield. There's nothing within the odds that make me a bit suspicious or a bit like, like what's up with these odds? Nothing in this match really screams that to me. I think Liverpool's depth is getting even more insane. I think Gravenberch has a great start to the season so far. Jota, Diaz, both insane. I think Liverpool are just set up. I think they're set up. I'm very impressed. They've gone well above my expectations up until this point, and I said I wasn't going to yap, but I ended up yapping anyways. But with all that being said, keeping it very simple, not going to overthink it, simply going with a 3-0 Liverpool win over Nottingham Forest. Manchester City and Brentford, same idea as the Liverpool match, same concept as the Liverpool match. There's not much to really yap about here. I think the same thing about Manchester City. Their depth feels insane too. I think they did incur some injuries over international break, but overall, I just think they're still in a league of their own with the top teams in the Prem here. So they're a 2 to 3 goal favorite. The question here would be maybe a rotation of squad, but again, nothing here in the odds made me kind of suspicious of the match at all. But the only thing I will say, so not with the odds, but with the recent results of Manchester City and Brentford sneaky keeps these matchups pretty close. I was a bit surprised to see that in their recent head-to-heads. If you go and check it yourself, they've never beaten Brentford by more than 2 goals if I saw the stats correctly, which I think is pretty crazy. So I think with that, plus the idea that nothing is really crazy with any of the recent results here, I'm going to strictly keep it with a 2-0 Manchester City win. I do know this could be a pretty high-scoring game. With every City game, it could always be that way, but I feel like long-term, the way I've kind of approached Manchester City matches, this type of result kind of works out. I may have gone a little too far under, but I don't feel like changing it to 3-0, so I'm going to stick with the 2-0 Manchester City win over Brentford for this match. Aston Villa and Everton. I don't even know where to start with Everton. They have to be the most disappointing team in the Premier League so far. I don't know if that's based on expectations or based on how they've played. Probably a little bit of both, right? They blew an easy 3 points and my correct score last match week against Bournemouth. I had 2-1 Everton, and it ends 3-2 to Bournemouth, which is absolutely insane. I think they're saying one of the bigger chokes of Premier League. Just absolutely shambolic out of Everton there. I was pretty upset about that. Not only the correct score, but also the idea that I was trying to predict an underdog like Everton to win that matchup, right? It made sense to me, and it looked like it was making perfect sense until the very end. The one thing about this match that I'm very surprised about is that Villa are only 1.5 to win at home in this match. How is that possible? How are Villa only 1.5 to win? I would have thought it would have been around 1.3. Like, if you asked me before looking at the odds, where do I feel like Villa should be, where I think Everton should be, I would have thought Villa would have been closer to 1.3 than 1.5. Maybe it's the expectation of UCL in the next couple days. Maybe Villa mess with their lineup more than people are thinking about here. here. So with the both teams to score sitting at 1.8 and the total being 2.75, I did go with a pretty interesting result, I feel like, compared to what other people might have. I'm going with a 1-0 Aston Villa win over Everton. Bournemouth versus Chelsea. So here we have Chelsea sitting at even money to win away from home here. The total sits at 3.25. The only notable thing I really saw in this matchup what for like players was that Palmer did not go to international break. He did not go to the England camp, so he's well rested. Chelsea back and forth, right? Insane win against Wolves just to draw Crystal Palace. Bournemouth with their insane win over Everton. I feel like Chelsea keeping a clean sheet here, especially away from home against Bournemouth. We do know Semenyo is about that life. And Bournemouth overall do have great players. I think they have Sinisterra and Kluivert. I like Bournemouth squad. It's just one of those things where I really did want to predict a 2-2 draw here. I really did want to give Bournemouth a point at home, but something about this Chelsea squad I feel like has a lot of firepower and depth off the bench here. So for those reasons, I did go with a 1-2 Chelsea win in this matchup. Tottenham versus Arsenal. I mean, simply put, this is the biggest match of match week 4. It's the North London Derby. The 1x2 market gives a small edge to Arsenal away from home. Arsenal are going to be without Odegaard and Declan Rice, which could create problems in the midfield. Off the top of my head, I'm really not too sure who they're going to bring in off the bench, what Arteta's going to, bring to this match. How are they going to solidify the midfield with those two injuries? Those are two one's an injury, one's a red card suspension. I did forget about that. Spurs have a couple issues of their own. Mickey Van de Ven's not going to be playing, and Solanke is still not fit and ready to go. So some injuries on both sides could make this one a bit difficult to predict, especially because when you do want to analyze Arsenal, you do have to think about their entire squad as a whole. But we'll see, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Arsenal does not miss a beat without those two. The game initially was making me feel draw, and I don't think I can get myself to go off the draw here. It does feel like 9 a.m. in the morning. One team either scores early, other team equalizes late, or it stays 0-0 for a while. But that part of it does make it a bit difficult for me, because I think if it does stay 0-0 for a while, there's only one way I feel like I have to go with it, and it's going to be a 1-1 draw in this match. I was very close to going 2-2, but I just couldn't get myself to do 2-2. I just don't think it's going to be high scoring, so I'm going to keep it to a 1-1 draw. Finally, we have Wolves and Newcastle to finish off the last match of match week 4. Difficult one for me to read, with Wolves having interesting results in their season so far, with a loss to Chelsea and Arsenal and a win against Burnley. And then on paper, Newcastle to me just seems like they should get the 3 points right. I feel like the 3 points should be inevitable here. Would I be surprised if Wolves came out and got a 1-0 or 1-1 result? It really wouldn't. Wolves at home historically have given teams, especially teams above them, on paper, they've given them problems. So for this match, with all that kind of put together in my head, I did try to keep this one more safe in the sense of kind of going with the expected, kind of going with the odds and the books, and I went with a simple 2-1 Newcastle win over Wolves. Something about this result makes me feel like I will regret it, especially if Wolves do pull off anything to get the points here, but I'm just going to keep it simple. 2-1 Newcastle. And that wraps up match week 4 in the Premier League. If you haven't already, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I will see you guys on the next one. Love you guys. Peace.